Good morning. My name is Neil Foote. I'm an old school journalist and a new school storyteller. I'm a principal lecturer at the Mayborn School of Journalism, and I'm the son of a fisherman. Well, he was a mechanical engineer by trade, but on the weekends he spent many a day fishing. And as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, New York, he loved to go deep sea fishing, and I had that wonderful opportunity to go with him fishing all the time. He always told many of the same stories, right? But never the same way every time. I decided to go a different route storytelling, and I became a journalist, having a great career at the Miami Herald and the Washington Post, having the great opportunity to cover stories like the Haitians coming to the U.S. for the first time and trying to get used to living in the U.S., riding along with cops in the middle of the night in Miami on drug raids, interviewing corporate CEOs, city council members, helping companies and individuals with their public relations strategies, celebrities, entrepreneurs, authors. So you can imagine the look on my face about 4 years ago when the department chair turned to me in a faculty meeting and said, "Neil, we want you to create Journalism 2300, Principles of News. We have principles of PR, we have principles of advertising, but we want you to create this class." Well, I was honored, humbled, a little awed that my colleagues with many, many more years of teaching than I had asked me, someone from industry, to create a class. I was anxious, I was nervous. I taught a class of maybe, at that point, of about 60 folks, never a lecture of 150 to 200 people. How could I engage 200 millennials, for the most part, in this conversation with me, right? How could I convince these students to come into an industry that was under such disruption? How could I convince them that, 50% of the circulation of newspapers had dropped in the last 20 years, 40% of the newsroom staff had dropped in the last 10 years? How could I convince them that journalism was the way to go? Well, I decided to come up with the 3 E's. Educate, engage, and entertain, the 3 E's. So I got to work. Pulled down syllabi from universities around the country that were teaching similar classes, consulted with my colleagues, lecturers, and tenure faculty on my staff to come up with the class. First class, 150 folks in the room. There I was, what do I do, what do I do? We dove into a discussion of current events, and that became the platform by which I started every class. Twice a week we met. We talked about Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber. We talked about President Obama and Brian Williams and his credibility. We talked about gun violence. We talked about race in America. We used those discussions to frame this discussion of the importance of news. Oh yeah, and by the way, this class, I was told, had to convince this group of 150, 200 students every semester to major in journalism. No pressure, right? We talked about Walter Cronkite, and that's the way it was. We talked about Ted Turner and his opportunity to transform broadcast journalism into 24/7 journalism. We talked about Huntley and Brinkley. We talked about the role that Jon Stewart was playing with The Daily Show and Stephen Colbert in framing and interpreting the news. Here it was. I had to convince these students who got their news and information from Twitter and Facebook that this industry was relevant and important. The second day of the class that week, I flipped the classroom. I flipped it. I said, well, there's no way I can stand up here for an hour and 20 minutes and get folks to listen to me. So I flipped it. We broke into small groups, and I gave them prompts. Would you run this picture of dead bodies in the front page of the newspaper? How would you vet citizen journalism, the stories and images that are coming from people who are witnessing events in our communities and around the world? At the end of those 15, 20 minutes, I went around the classroom. There was basically a spokesperson, a leader from each of those sections who had to report out. At first, they were very timid, as most students are at the beginning of each semester. But by the end of the semester, I would have dissenting opinions. Well, half of our group believed that you should run those pictures, but the other half said no. I said, I got them thinking, right? I got them thinking about the importance of this business, because I was educating them, I was engaging them, and they were feeling entertained but getting educated at the same time. And what I learned from this process was that whether it was a small lecture, seminar, or practical class of 18 to 20 students, or whether it was a class of 150 to 200 students, that educating, engaging, and entertaining was critical to that process. So for me, with each venture, with each classroom, this Principles of Lecture class kind of became that inspiration. The kind of edge that we all kind of have as educators as we walk into the classroom is, can we relate to our students? Can we get them excited about what we're doing because we're so excited about it? Became that mantra for me: educate, engage, entertain. Good luck, and I look forward to talking to many of you all later. Thank you very much.